Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll have another announcement momentarily about the Palm Sunday service, but today we continue with our series of senior speakers, and it gives me great pleasure to call on Miss McDonald to introduce Philip Hodges.
The Persian poet Hodges said, "You carry in your soul every ingredient necessary to turn your existence into joy. All you have to do is mix those ingredients." If this is true, then by all accounts, Philip Hodges is already quite an accomplished chef. He is a global soul, a world citizen, and a consummate nomad. He arrived in Nashville by way of Austin, Charlotte, Winston-Salem, Birmingham, Alabama, and Salina, Kansas. Somehow, in all this moving around, he has developed the intuitive understanding that somewhere between stagnation and chaos is where the magic happens, and that life is not a spectator sport. Phil is a participant, a lover of the unknown. He is a robust problem solver with an appreciation for the unexpected advantages of having to cope with a little mess. He refuses complacency and challenges himself to try new things, however uncomfortable. Whether it's performing in the school play, or accompanying his father on a volunteer trip to the jungles of El Salvador, or flying halfway around the world to brainstorm responsible business ideas with other high school students from a dozen different countries. He always engages people with gentleness and humility, and he listens to what they have to say. These gentle yes ma'ams and no sirs should in no way indicate that he is acquiescent or timid. I have seen him fiercely defend the things he believes in related to social justice, politics, and the environment. But he doesn't just defend his beliefs with words. He takes small, active steps, like arranging for automatic lights in the dorm laundry rooms, devising a composting system, and helping spread awareness about how to use energy more wisely and effectively. In fact, he comes up with all kinds of ideas all the time, and some of them fly, and some of them don't. But he's not afraid to take a risk, and he is fine being the first domino in a movement toward the greater good. A loyal friend, a strong leader, and an insatiably curious student of life, he is always asking, how can I make things just a little bit better? How can I learn more? The world today is full of unprecedented challenges. Demagogues everywhere tell us that we all belong in tribes and that we will be safer if we are surrounded by sameness and order. They say that we should reject and judge the other, fear the unknown, and erase ambiguity and nuance. Phil doesn't buy into this. He is a pluralist who understands that tribalism shrinks our minds, but it also shrinks our hearts. His compassion for humanity and his sensitivity to the suffering of others is inspiring, and his daily actions reveal a belief that no man is an island and that we are all truly connected. For this deep wisdom, I credit his parents, his loving and supportive parents, David and Lisa, and his wonderful friendship with his siblings, Mary Catherine and Burton. Thank you for sharing your son and brother with us. He has enriched our lives immeasurably here at High School. And finally, the author and activist James Baldwin said many years ago during another particularly incendiary moment in our nation's history, "Everything now we must assume is in our own hands. We have no right to assume otherwise." Thank you, Phil, for being brave enough to take things into your own hands, for being strong enough to act, and for being flexible enough to change course when necessary. May this next chapter of your life be joyful, complex, and sufficiently uncomfortable. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Philip Hodges.
Good morning.
First, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Ms. McDonald. You're an incredible teacher and mentor, and you have opened my mind in so many ways, and for that I thank you. I'd also like to thank the fine folks up on the top row for being here today, my family, and especially my parents for making the trip over from Kansas. I love you guys. Mr. Krieger, Coach Miles, I showed up on your doorstep 2 weeks before school started my sophomore year. You took me in and gave me the best opportunity I've ever been presented. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you. I've made some of the best friends in my life here, hailing from all corners of the globe. You guys know who you are. It's been one hell of a ride, and I love you guys. A few months ago, I found myself on the other side of the world on a solo expedition in Jordan, a place so far from home, in a region widely misunderstood. When I arrived, there were no other blonde hair, blue-eyed complexions. I was surrounded by people speaking Arabic, women wearing hijabs, and a swarm of curious eyes looking my way. I was an outlier, a foreigner. I had no clue as to how I might be received or what I would experience, especially as an American in the Middle East. The comfort of familiarity was nowhere to be found. It wasn't exactly a feel-good vacation to the Caribbean. I went to Jordan, where the landscape resembled Mars, to attend an entrepreneurship boot camp. That week, I was humbled to the point that I was at a loss for words. I met many Jordanians my age, college and high school students, who were ecstatic I had come to their country. And they went out of their way to welcome me, take me out for the local experience, and allow me a glimpse of everyday life in this part of the world. At first, I took their kindness with a grain of salt. But I quickly learned it was simply their way of life. I was overcome with hospitality, and it made me realize how I need to employ more kindness in my own life and embody the friendship and generosity shown to me there. But I think what resonated with me the most was how lucky I am to be standing here as a student on this campus, living and studying in a country with seemingly endless resources and opportunities. I met fellow students who would give anything to be in my shoes and have the luxuries that I take for granted. I've come to understand how fortunate each of us here today is. I'm lucky to receive a top-notch education with access to explore anything that piques my interest, both in and out of the classroom. In the course of a day, I can, to name a few, talk stocks with Amato, the music industry with McMurray, political activism with Mr. Williams, or the complexity of environmental issues with Mr. Ramsey. I can climb Appalachia's pristine rock faces with Kenneth, and even hear tales of a younger Euler trekking across the United States with hair down to his knees and Birkenstocks on his feet. The mecca of opportunity here at CS and the faculty that are readily available to share their knowledge and passions makes for a very unique space in which the possibilities for exploration are truly limitless. This is something that must be taken advantage of, something my friends back in Jordan would give anything to have. Curiosity must be embraced and followed, and this is a great place for that to happen. There are a few things that I know for certain, but one thing I do know is that we have to be uncomfortable. To be perfectly honest, I don't really know where I'm from. I've been to 3 high schools, I've had 9 different mailboxes, and my family has settled down in 4 different states. My childhood is certainly characterized by moving around the Southeast and eventually heading out west. A process of being uprooted from familiarity and planted in a new foreign environment. I'll never forget being the new kid, longing for the comfort of my previous home among the confusion of forging a new life for myself. I was resistant to change, and I wished for predictable outcomes on a trajectory that I previously imagined. I struggled during the transitions and wished for stagnation in a comfortable place. I wanted to sit still and grow deep roots. When I look back, I now understand that this has been the most formative experience of my life. It forced me to be resilient, detached from the past, and find peace in movement, molding me into someone who understands the value of change. Being lost, nostalgic, angry, and uncomfortable was the byproduct of having the opportunity to be an observant nomad and peer into different bubbles and gain an understanding of how humans and systems function. It's instilled in me a love for new places and cultures. It's allowed me to meet so many different people and gain exposure to the world at large. Experiences that I would have missed out on had I lived a stagnant upbringing in a single, familiar setting. I'm forever in debt to my parents for giving me this experience. What I've drawn from my experience is the recognition that we have to branch out, try new things, expand our skill sets and interests, and undergo new experiences that not only change our ideas and perspectives, but ultimately forge our individuality. We must go places we've never been before, both geographically and intellectually. I encourage everyone to step out of the bubble of familiarity from time to time. I never knew I'd enjoy putting on a weird costume and acting in front of a crowd, and from that discover a love for public speaking and performance. I never knew that I'd be inspired by people in Jordan whose life experiences differ so greatly from mine. The moment we stop seeking more and milking the most from this long, strange trip we call life, I'd argue that's when we die. It's one thing just to be living, it's another thing to be evolving and thriving. Tomorrow isn't promised, and this one life we have is so precious. We have to live it up, be bold, and capitalize on the abundance of opportunities around us. With the recognition of opportunity comes the question of what will you do with the abundance of resources available at your fingertips? How will you capitalize on opportunities and forge a path tailored to your individuality? I once read a quote from Steve Jobs, one of the most influential businessmen and visionaries of our time, that helped form my approach. Jobs says, "When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world. Try not to bash into the walls too much. Try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. That's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact. Everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you, and you can change it. You can influence it. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again." I like this quote because it describes the mindset of the future. There's never been a more exciting time to be alive. There's much to be grateful for and much to look forward to as we progress into an era of inevitable change. Older generations view the future we are inheriting to be grim and troublesome, an easy mindset to adopt when swallowing the news of the media today. I choose to approach the future with optimism, knowing there are educated, passionate, and free-thinking people in this world. And many among us today who recognize the need to change the way we do business, make policy, and treat one another. There are outdated systems that no longer serve us. There are status quos that need to be challenged, and smarter ways of constructing the world we live in that need to be implemented for the betterment of all. The question I now pose is, what kind of world do you want to live in? It's on us to figure that out and begin creating that vision. The best place to start is with yourself. Change yourself and the world will follow. I hope you'll recognize the potential within you to do and create incredible things. Enjoy the journey. Thank you.